that might come back around. And it always does. Like, one of the biggest things that I've learned is that no meeting is a waste of time. Everything always comes back around to pay you back in some way, shape, or form. Hi, I'm Naomi White, and I help product and service-based business owners to get noticed, be heard, and become known through the power of PR.
Naomi, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Really excited to learn from you. For our audience, I think this is going to be a fantastic interview. So tell us a little bit about maybe what your career aspirations were when you were growing up, and whether you were like the entrepreneurial kid, whether you kind of saw yourself going down this particular path, maybe some of what shaped you as a person.
Actually, when I was younger, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I didn't know what I wanted to do right up until the point of leaving university. When I was younger, I wasn't the most academically able. I was actually told by a lot of my teachers that I wasn't the most brightest person in the room, which I knew, but I had strengths in other areas. I found school a challenge and wasn't very passionate about any subjects. I struggled a lot just because I wasn't very good at maths. I wasn't very good at English. Like, there was nothing that was really like a massive strong point for me at school. And I think a lot of my teachers at school expected me to fail, in all honesty. Which I actually had this conversation with my mum a couple of weeks ago, and she said to me, imagine if your school teachers could see you now. And I've got quite a few friends who are also in a similar position to me in that respect. But it's just, I find it quite funny how sometimes the people that you least expect it from go on to be the most entrepreneurial and often successful. And I think for me, it was purely down to, I needed to find something that I was really passionate about and where I wanted to direct my attention to. So that kind of came through my journey of getting into PR.
What were some of the first steps that you took to explore that career path?
So it actually was, the interest was sparked from my sister. So my sister, she did a degree in psychology. She then went on to work for a company called Fashion Monitor, which is a database that a lot of the PR industry and the media use. And at that time, I went to university in Bournemouth and I studied events management, and I thought I wanted to be an event manager and I wanted to work in festivals and all of those fun things. And then my sister one day said to me, why don't you think about PR? And at that point, I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. What is PR? Like, and even if you Google it, it still doesn't give you a very concise answer as to what PR is. And my sister at that time was going around to a lot of like press days at various PR agencies, focused primarily in fashion. And so she said, look, I've got a few connections within the industry. Maybe I can help you get to your placement year. So my third year of uni was a placement year. And so I did a bit of research into what PR is and kind of like what kind of thing you do from a day to day. And I'll be totally honest, I watched The Devil Wears Prada and I was like, I want my life to be kind of like that. And I read a book, and I'm looking at it now on my bookshelf, called Fashion Babylon. And that was another thing that I was like, yeah, I think I want to work in fashion. And obviously PR is all about building relationships and PRing products, getting them featured within the media. And I was like, oh, this seems quite cool. It kind of integrates magazines that I love, but also you work on the brand side of things. So I was like, right, let's explore this as a career. And so in my third year of uni, I went to work at a PR agency called Brian Morrell PR, which primarily was a fashion PR agency, really well known back in the day, and worked on some incredible brands like Mango, Miss 60, Debenhams, and I was their fashion assistant for a year.
What is one thing that you wish you'd known when you first started out on your business journey?
That life gets easier when you outsource. And actually outsourcing isn't negative. Sometimes you just have to kind of let go of the ego that's associated with doing absolutely everything yourself. Mm-hmm. And there are people that are stronger in different areas than you. So why not outsource it to them and let them run with it?
Totally. Couldn't agree more. What's one thing that you wish you'd done sooner in your business?
had professional imagery taken. For me, that was a massive game changer and at a really small expense. And it really transformed my business. And the reason I had my imagery taken was because of the coaching business. So I wish I'd done that sooner, I think, for a multitude of things, but one being social media, the other being my website and how I promote myself. You are your brand.
Why do you do what you do?
I do what I do because I know that PR has the power to catapult a business more than you can ever imagine. It can just take that one article in like a leading national newspaper to raise the awareness that you've been looking for, to make the sales, to create the business that you dream of. And I guess, the reason I do what I do is because I hold the key to that for some businesses that obviously put that task in my hands.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. And so what would you say is the best part about your job?
Being able to connect and meet with people, I think. Like I said, some of the journalists that I've met along the way are like my closest friends now. And I think in myself, being able to overcome that kind of introvert nature that I have and just being able to put myself out there, meet new people, and actually, I socialize on a daily basis, which is one of the positives.
Yeah, I love that so much. What would you say is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Done is better than perfect. It's something that my sister always said to me. I'm a massive perfectionist, and I had to learn very quickly when I started PR that nothing will ever be perfect, and there will always be something that's not quite up to scratch or to your standard, but actually often it's a level of perfectionism that you have within yourself that no one else will notice out externally. And so you're kind of like bringing yourself down for no reason. So just accept that nothing is ever perfect, but done is better than perfect, often in most cases.
So when you first started out with building your own agency, what type of business did you think you would build? Did you have big vision in mind? Was it just about getting a few clients and getting started? How kind of big picture did you go with it? I
didn't, in all honesty. I never actually thought I would ever be a business owner based on like many things. Obviously, what happened when I was at school, just kind of believing that maybe I wasn't clever enough or I didn't have enough experience. Owning a business was never in the plan. And I just took a leap of faith. It wasn't planned out by like a business plan, a strategy. Like to a certain extent, there was a plan behind it, and I can go into detail on that. But in terms of like a really concise vision of what I wanted it to be like, I didn't have one. I knew that there was a space in the market for this. I knew that there was no one else specializing in this, and I knew that I could get clients. And to this day, I still sometimes am quite amazed with the things that I get to do, the clients I get to work with, how well the business is going. It does kind of blow my mind sometimes. And I should probably think with a bigger vision. But I tend to just kind of look at what's in front of me right now and tackle things head on.
Can you talk about kind of the ways in which you initially made connections and made money, like onboarded clients? What was your approach? Was it grassroots? Was it strategic? Tell us a little bit more about kind of getting your first clients.
So my first clients were simply people who I knew. I knew they had businesses. I knew that they didn't have PR representation. I knew the owners quite well. I reached out to them and simply said to them, look, I'm thinking about starting my own agency. Would this be something that you would consider? Obviously, they had to take a risk in me being a new business owner. It paid off. A lot of my original clients were just people that I knew, or word of mouth as well. So to date, most of my clients come through word of mouth recommendation. I also had a side hustle as a spinning instructor at Boom Cycle. So this was, like you say, when the boutique studio phenomenon was kind of like taking off. I was very lucky that I had the idea for a business specializing in health and wellness the year that health and wellness had its kind of entry moment. And like I say, there was no one else specializing in this industry. So I did have a niche and that worked to my advantage, but there was a lot of groundwork that went into making that happen at the beginning. And one of those things was being a spinning instructor on the side.
Yeah, amazing. And I mean, tell me, was that part of developing your network and building relationships as much as it was kind of another income stream and another way for you to just have an outlet for your, for your kind of career aspirations in a sense?
For me, the driver of being a spinning instructor was never actually the money. That was just kind of like the icing on the cake for that. For me, it was because I am someone who I just need to be stimulated by a lot of things at any given time. And so I wanted to have two careers basically run alongside each other. And I had Boom Cycle as one of my PR clients. They were my first client and they're still my client today. And I had been going there for a while. And Hillary asked me one day, would I think about being a spinning instructor? And I was like, yeah, sure, love to. And that's how it started. And there were so many advantages that came with that. One of the big ones, obviously, is that journalists could come down to Boom Cycle and I essentially could do two jobs in one. I taught the spinning class that they came to, but I was also entertaining them, which is part of my PR job. And at the same time, I'm PRing Boom Cycle, which is one of my clients. So everything worked really well hand in hand, and it did enable me to build a network of connections, not just from the perspective of gaining journalist connections, but also brand connections as well. That I still have like friends from various different brands now who I met via teaching at Boom Cycle. And I think for a long time I was known as Naomi from Boom Cycle.
Can you tell me a little bit about how important networking has been for you?
Yeah, so network is integral to PR. So for me, networking is primarily one of the fundamental skills that I need to have, and that I go out there and I meet journalists on a daily basis. So networking for me, there's two sides of it. It's networking for clients, but it's also networking with journalists to identify opportunity for those clients. So without building that network, without building those relationships, getting to know other people, how they can help you and vice versa, how you can help them. I think for me, the biggest thing that I learned from networking is don't go into it thinking that you with a return as your end goal. Yes, that person might be able to help you, but it might not be immediate. So right. A lot of the people that I meet, we don't necessarily meet for a reason. We meet just because we might be like-minded. And then in 6 months, 12 months, maybe even like 3 months, 3 years down the line, that might come back around. And it always does. Like one of the biggest things that I've learned is that no meeting is a waste of time. Everything always comes back around to pay you back in some way, shape or form. But I think, one of my biggest pieces of advice to anyone networking is don't go into it with like a really hungry mindset so that you really want to achieve something out of that networking. Like sometimes the best relationships are just built from organic conversation and actually getting to know someone on a personal level rather than thinking about how you can capitalize on that relationship immediately.
What has that enabled you to achieve in terms of reach and impact and being able to, I guess, kind of disseminate your knowledge in a more scalable way?
The coaching has definitely given me an insight into being able to, I guess, understand from a new business perspective that what I do on a day-to-day basis and what I find really easy and really basic, actually the next person has no idea about. And so essentially it's taken me back to basics to understand that level of how granular you have to be with coaching and how you can really, off the back of that, really impact someone. I've also experienced that with my coaching business, how I promote it, how I market it, how I sell it. Like that was all new to me. I was like, oh God, where do I even start? Essentially, the coaching business has enabled me to serve more people in any given time. It's a group coaching program that I run at the moment. There's also a one-to-one offering that I have. There's a self-study course. So there's many options with that. It has enabled me to work with more clients at one time.
As you kind of reflect on the challenges that you've faced in building your business and also obviously the rewards, What advice would you give to somebody who, is maybe just starting out, who might be feeling completely overwhelmed about, where do I start? What do I do next? Is there space for me? What kind of advice would you share with that person?
Be true to yourself and don't just follow the crowd because you think that you'll make more money that way. I think one of my biggest learnings was that you can take a leap of faith and it does work to your advantage. And just because no one else is doing it doesn't mean that you can't do it. I think there's a big misconception out there that if people aren't doing it, there's a reason why they're not doing it. But actually, it takes that one person to make it successful, to then obviously spark ideas for other people to follow suit. So don't be afraid of being the first to do something.
Thank you so much, Naomi. Huge inspiration for every expert listening to this, but also it's been so helpful to get your advice on how to actually get visible, how to get that exposure. And so we'll include all of your contact details in the show notes too, for anyone wanting to understand how to PR themselves as an expert. Naomi is your gal. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.